Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Nigeria Community Conference 2022.
Hey.
Hello, Dami. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi, it's been a wonderful day. I'm glad that a lot of people have decided to join us this session. So today is the first day of our event, and it's definitely going to be a wonderful one. So David went all the way to Nigeria. So, Sir David, welcome to the show.
True.
Oh, your voice, we can hear your. Can you check your sound, sir?
Oh, sorry. Apologies for that. Awesome. So,
You
so
know.
again, I think I'll just echo what you just said. So, great welcome to everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. So, first day of the Azure Nigeria Community Conference 2022. So, we did have a bit of some sound issues earlier, but that's all cleared up now. So, hopefully, you can hear us all clearly. We're so excited to have you here. And we also have Scott Ansman in the studio already with us. So, we're excited with that. Hello, Dami. Hello, Sheyi also. How you doing? How you doing
Hi,
today?
hi, hi. It's good.
Yeah. So before we go ahead and hand over to Scott, just to just get some information from you. So, what exactly are you looking forward to in this particular conference? So, the Azure Nigerian conference. Anything in particular that you're looking forward to, maybe taking away from the end at the end of this?
Well, it looks like it's action packed. I mean, looking at the event that we have for even today, which is just the shortest time we have for the two-day session, there's a lot of events about Azure security and other Power BI sessions. So really, I'm really excited about it. I'm just looking forward to almost everything that's is on the table because knowledge is power, from my opinion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Dami? Any particular thing that you're looking to take away from the conference?
Well, looking at the tracks and the sessions, I think it's going to be an eye-opening session throughout,
Yeah.
and it's also going to be an educative time because, of course, it's fully packed, and I look forward to learning a lot. I'm sure everybody does too. So yeah, and maybe have some fun along the way.
Awesome. And Sheyi, so finally, and then we'll bring Scott in.
Yeah, I think knowledge is power. Someone just tweeted it. So it's a power packed event which we are going to see a lot of twisting knowledge of Azure and trickling down to every core area of Azure from AI down to e-security. So it's going to be a wow for everyone. And starting with cults, that means we're going to have a smooth ride down the lane.
Absolutely.
Okay, so enough talking. I think let's go ahead and introduce Scott. So this is the first keynote of the event. So just so you know, if you have any questions while Scott is speaking, feel free to put your questions in the chat window. So Scott will be happy to pick them out. And if we see any question that's very interesting also, we can also pick out those questions and we're going to be passing them on to Scott to answer for you. And some other information that we're going to be passing on to you on how to join your individual tracks by the end of Scott's session. So just hang around for a few more minutes after Scott's presentation, and we'll share some information with you on how to join your tracks. But let's go ahead and bring the man, the myth, the legend himself. Let's go ahead and bring Scott. Hello, Scott. How are you doing?
Oh my goodness, I can't do anything with an introduction like that. Well, what am I supposed to do now? Lower your expectations, my friends.
When the expectation is high, you can almost sense it, right? So the expectation is really, really high. We're not lowering it. Actually, I would say you should raise the expectation really, really higher because
Yeah.
we have against Scott himself. This is not something that we get like to really get like a direct knowledge from Scott himself. So we're excited about this opportunity. So Scott, we'll just hand over to you. Let you go ahead with your session, and then we'll be in background to provide assistance if anything is needed.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And one of the things that's worth noting, I think we talked about this, and to our friends that are watching, is what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to have any slides because slides are no fun, are they? We're going to talk about code because we are all developers here and we're ready to learn about some cool stuff that's happening in Azure. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by bringing up my screen, and we're going to begin in my favorite code editing application, which is Notepad, right? Don't we all spend time here in Notepad? So I thought it would be interesting to talk about some stuff that I've been working on in my journey as I learn more about Azure. So what I've done is I've moved recently a number of my websites into Azure. So give you a little bit of context, if you don't know me, we'll go and we'll start at my website. My last name is Hanselman, and hanselman.com is my website. So I've got this website, and a lot of us have our home pages, our brochure on the web. It's got my blog and places that I speak and some books that I've written and links. It's basically like my link tree. Then I've got my blog, and my blog appears at /blog underneath. Okay, but that's actually a different website. And then I've got my podcast. And my podcast is called Hansel Minutes, because my last name is Hanselman, and I'm not a very good estimator. So people will say, "Hey, Scott, how long will that take?" And I'll say, about 30 minutes. And they'll say, "Are those Hansel minutes or are those real minutes?" And then they learn that I run on my own time and you can't count on me. But Hansel Minutes is a 30-minute podcast, and I would encourage you to check it out. You can see I just published a show actually yesterday. And if you click on episodes and you scroll down here, you can see that in fact I've done 842 episodes. 842 episodes. And if you scroll down, I'm just using my scrolly wheel here. You can see all the cool people I've had on. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cool people that are talking about tech. So I would encourage you to check that out. There's a lot of good resources there. Okay, so you start at hanselman.com. So Matthew, who's asking about the links in the chat, we start at hanselman.com. That's Hanselman International. But of course, this is not a company. This is just me, right? So we all have our little websites, our little projects, and our fun things like that. So let's look at where we're at. We have hanselman.com, we have Hansel Minutes, and we have hanselman.com/blog. So where do we host, right? We find different places to host our things. Sometimes we host them in the cloud in Azure, but remember that I'm old, okay? And I just told you that I have got this podcast for 842 episodes. So that's been going on every Thursday for 16 years, all right? The cloud did not exist 16 years ago. The blog, we go to hanselman.com/blog, and I click on the calendar, we can actually see that I've been blogging on and off since 2002. So that's 20 years of blogging. So this is what's called a legacy system, right? If it's 20 years old, it's a legacy system. So what happened was there was a thing called a Microsoft MVP, the Most Valuable Professional program, and it's a community program. I've not always worked for Microsoft. I've been a community member and have been in tech for 30 years. So for a time, I was a Microsoft MVP. And they would sometimes give you free stuff, okay? They give you a little bit of free stuff. So for a while there, 20 years ago, I got free hosting. And what free hosting meant was $50 and a VM. So I get this virtual machine, okay? And virtual machines were just coming up at this point. Now, we all know that a virtual machine, right, is something virtual. You can make a copy of it. You can put it on a USB key. You can connect to it. I can remote desktop into my virtual machine. So I was very excited that I could have some free hosting. Now, this free hosting was on Windows Server 2003. Windows Server 2003. And it used a thing called IIS, Internet Information Server. So I put all of my stuff up on this free virtual machine. So I had these 3 websites hosted up on this virtual machine, and it worked really great. That's a great question. Question from Matthew in the chat here about was there a hypervisor used? So this is really early days. I would actually have to go and find out what the point was. When was Hyper-V invented? Let's look it up in Wikipedia. These are great questions, and this is why I like doing live talks, because then we can go and learn together. Okay, so the initial version of Hyper-V was 2008. That wouldn't have been a hypervisor at that point. So let's look at when VMware was founded. VMware was founded in 1998. So virtualization as a concept existed, but Hyper-V did not yet exist until a couple of years later. So great question. Thank you, Matthew. So I think that I've got this virtual machine and I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I host my stuff up there. And then a couple of years go by and my website starts throwing yellow screens of death. The yellow screen of death is an ASP.NET thing that basically you're hitting your website and then suddenly the whole screen turns yellow and it shows you a bunch of code and you go, oh my goodness, I've ruined my website, and it's an error message. You're not supposed to see them in production. So I started getting worried about this. The yellow screen of death was showing me a call stack and it was showing me code and I felt really bad. So then I called the hosting company. I called tech support. I said, hey, tech support, it's me, it's Scott Hanselman. Can you help me? I need you to maybe let me know what's going on. It turned out that my disk was full. My disk was full because I only had 30 gigs of space. That means total. So it was a 30 gig hard drive. But I figure, hey, it's virtual machine. Can you give me maybe 50 gigs or 60 gigs? I don't need a lot. That's okay. Then they said, who are you? They didn't know me. And I said, well, no, I'm Scott. You gave me a free computer. And they said, we gave you a free computer? What are you talking about? And I said, well, yeah, I'm an MVP. Back in 2003, you were giving away free hosting. And you gave them for MVPs. Don't you remember? And they're like, no, we don't know you, right? We don't know you. What is this about? The hard drive's full. I can see that it's out there. I don't know what's going on. They've never heard of me, meaning that they don't find me in their customer database, right? You are not a customer. So now I'm freaking out. And I say, I can ping it. I mean, like, it's me. I can ping Hanselman.com. So I see that there's an IP address. My website is still up. Help me understand where my computer is. And they said they started calling around and asking questions. And it turns out that the company had been sold. The company had been sold and they had forgotten about me. They didn't know about this machine. They didn't know where it was. They had no idea. Now, this is a really interesting point here. And why I'm bringing it up to you is we have to talk about the difference between hosting and the cloud. Why does the cloud exist? Remember that I mentioned before that the cloud didn't exist 20 years ago. So when I started, I got hosting. Okay. So hosting is when you have a physical computer and you host it, like when you bring a guest over to your house and they're now your guest, you are the host. So in the past, 25 years ago, I would have the computer in my house and then I would maybe have a very slow internet to my house. And then when I outgrew that, I would take that computer to a host and it would stay at their house, right? It would stay at their warehouse. So hosting is having someone's physical computer that you can touch. And this is really significant because if you have a guest that's staying somewhere, you can visit them. I wanted to know where my computer was. I wanted to know what was going on. Why can I not visit this computer? They didn't know it. They lost me. They lost my computer and I had no idea where it was. So as Isa says in the chat, hosting is not the cloud, okay? So hosting is one computer out there in the world that I can hold on to, or maybe it's a relationship with a company. And if I say, I need to scale, then they're going to go and get more computers and they're going to plug the wires in and they're going to have a web farm of computers. That's hosting. But the cloud is elastic. And it's that elasticity, that stretchiness that's so important. And I didn't have that because I had one computer that they gave me 20 years ago, and they lost it. But then they started digging around, and it turns out that it was never a virtual machine. All this time, all these years, I thought I had a virtual machine, but in fact, it was a physical machine under someone's desk. Turns out that a lot of people did not take them up on this offer, and they didn't make any virtual machines. So they ended up just taking a physical computer, like a little mini tower, and they put it under someone's desk, and they forgot about me. And then at some point, they got sold to another company. And then that company took my computer, my little tower, and they stuck it in the corner somewhere, and it just ran. It ran quietly for years. So then no one noticed until the hard drive started filling up. Now I felt really bad. I've got this full hard drive. I only have 30 gigs. How am I going to solve this problem? I need them to find this machine. Now, this is another example about hosting versus the cloud. If I have a computer in the cloud, can I visit it? Can I go and say hello? Can I touch it? Can I push refresh and hear that cloud computer spin? I can't, because the storage is over here and the networking is over there and the virtual machine is here and the cloud has copies. So there's no real one place that my computer is. But with the physical computer, that actual physical machine, it was sitting somewhere. So they ended up sending someone into the warehouse, into this warehouse, this hosting system warehouse. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Indiana Jones, but at the end of Indiana Jones, the movie, there's a warehouse. And at the end of this movie, they are storing all of the world's great secrets. And this is where I feel like my computer was. Maybe my computer was over there. And they have all these machines, and they're forgotten, and they're lonely, and it's awful. So great point here. In the chat, I just saw that someone said, crazy that it ran for so long. Exactly. That's the shocking part. So hard drives usually only last for about 5 to 7 years. That's called the mean time before failure, or the MTBF. So why is this thing still running? Here's the thing. Have you ever had a car, or you had a friend or a cousin who had a car, and you had a feeling that if you stopped the car, you would never get it started again? Have you ever been on a bus or a minibus and you're like, we need to keep this thing going, because if we stop it, we're never going to get it started again? That's how I felt about my hard drive. I feel like this thing was living on borrowed time. It was spinning. If I shut it down, it's never going to spin again. So I'm freaking out. It's in the warehouse somewhere. All I can do is ping it, and I can FTP, file transfer protocol. So I back it up fast. I use FTP and I copy everything off that computer, because I need to get off of hosting and I need to get onto the cloud. So here's my properties. Here's my properties. And I want to get each of these off. And these are each different. Yeah, you're saying, our friends in the chat, Matthew's saying that our friends in the chat feel like they've used it in public transportation. Yeah, you just got to keep going downhill, because if you stop, you're never going to make it. Yeah, absolutely. Damilola knows what's up. You stay in Lagos, you have to experience one of those vehicles that would just, you're lucky that it's running. That's exactly how I felt about my computer. So I'm afraid at this point. But what's the naive thing to do? Now, this is an interesting word, naive. This is a naive solution. Naive sometimes is used as a negative word, like lack of experience. But another word for naive is natural or innocent. So there is a naive solution. This is not meant to offend. This is rather meant to have a very specific word for a solution that's common. What's the easiest thing that I could do? What's the easiest thing that I could do? You've ever heard the term lift and shift? Right? I could just make a copy of that computer. It's a Windows virtual machine, and I could move it up to the cloud, and that'd be great. And that is a naive or a natural and somewhat simplistic solution. We hear this term lift and shift a lot. if my computer goes from that Indiana Jones warehouse to the cloud, what have I gained? This is really important. We talk about the cloud, we talk about web development, but we're not thinking about the actual business problem. What is the business problem, my friends? The problem was I lost control of my computer. It was running on an unreliable hard drive. I still have to manage Windows. This is important. I'm still remote desktoping into Windows. And I'm going and I'm running a very old version of Windows, and I'm running Windows Update. I'm doing my own security updates. This is interesting. I'm doing security updates. I'm updating the certificates for SSL. And I'm running on a 20-year-old operating system. Okay. So this is not solved if I simply lift it up. If I pick up this virtual machine and I put it in the cloud, I still have to feed the beast. I still have to feed this thing. This is not platform as a solution, right? This is not platform as a service. This is IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. That means that they're giving me the infrastructure, like the network and the computer, but I have to maintain it. So that's not cool. So there's an opportunity here for me to do something that's not naive. I'm not going to lift and shift. So let's take an inventory. We have Hanselman.com, which is a simple site. It's ASP.NET MVC. It is running on .NET 4.5, and we're on Windows. We have Hansel Minutes, which is using a thing called Razor Pages. It's newer. It calls web services, a little bit fancier. And then we have a thing called the Hanselman blog, which is running a open source software called DOSBlog. And that software is 20 years old. And it uses XML to hold the blogs. So if we take these and we sort by complexity, this is the simplest site, and this is the most complicated site. So what can we do if we have some business goals? What are our business goals? Get into the cloud. That's one business goal. Another one would be don't run Windows Update manually. I want it to be secure. I want my certs to be automatic, right? I want better scale. These are all reasons for me to get into the cloud. Now, I also have what's called business continuity. I don't know how to spell, so I think that's how you spell business continuity. That means I don't want you to notice that I'm going to go and upgrade this thing. So here's the deal. I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling sad. My computer is crashing. I need to get these off onto another location. But I don't want you, and you are the public, to notice. So how do I do this? What's the tool? What's the most powerful tool we have available to us on the internet right now from a infrastructure perspective? Is it HTTP? Is it TCP/IP? I'm proposing that the most powerful tool that people don't use enough of is DNS. Okay, domain name services, domain name service. This is the key for allowing me to move my stuff into the cloud quietly so that no one else notices. And I love the chats that are going on here. So definitely keep up the chats. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I see them all, and I'm going to go and answer them. So why is DNS powerful? Well, I bought this domain. I own that domain, and I own this domain. So what I choose to do with that domain is totally up to me. Okay. So what I decided to do was I have www.hanselman.com. I'm going to make staging.hanselman.com. And this right here, this staging, that is a subdomain. And that's also called a CNAME. Okay. That's a CNAME. So you can have, mysite.com, and then you can have foo.mysite.com. Most of us assume that you just have www, But in fact, I'm going to make staging.hanselman.com, and I can have test.hanselman.com. So what I decided to do was something that is a little bit surprising, maybe if you've only run a personal website. I decided to run 2 sites at the same time. This site would remain temporarily on the old computer as long as the old computer ran. Okay. And then I'm going to point staging to Azure. And then what I can do is I can use one of 2 tools. I can use either Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a front door, or I can use Azure Front Door. And both of these are called reverse proxies. And what it means is when you type hanselman.com, the front door is not my computer anymore. You're not going to go and hit my physical computer. You're going to hit Azure Front Door. And then it will decide, just like when you enter a hotel, it'll say, oh, you're in room 606. Oh, you're in room 43. It's going to go and route the traffic. So Azure Front Door is going to route my traffic for me, okay? Keep those questions coming, my friends, because I'm live. This is not a YouTube. Well, it is a YouTube, but it's a live YouTube, but I'm a real person. All right? So Azure Front Door is going to look at that. So what I did by staging points to Azure websites. And Azure Front Door, we'll call it AFD, decides to go to, in this case, the old computer. So why is that interesting? That means that I could have a site like hanselman.com/this is a test, and I could have staging.hanselman.com/this is a test, and that allows me to go back and forth, and I can test those left and right. And that means if it works, the customer is going to get a great experience in both places. And then if I do it right, I can do a swap. I can switch it. Exactly. It's a hybrid here. So the front door is catching the first call to Hanselman or staging, and then I point it to the old computer, and I'm doing this work because many, many, many more people are visiting the main site than they are staging. And I could go and say, well, I want 5% of my traffic to the new site, and I want 95% to the old site. And slowly drain traffic off of that old computer until 100% is on staging, and then I'll be able to switch them. Isn't that interesting? Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, though, was I wanted to learn more about, Linux. I want to get off of Windows to save some money. And remember that my hosting was free. Damilola just said it's load balancing. That's exactly right. Load balancing, in this case, across 2 environments. We're actually using a staging environment in production. I love this. Yusuf says it's the poor man's or the poor person's A/B test. That's a great point that you bring up, because in this example, I don't have any. I do not have unlimited money. I am the poor man in this context. I want to make my little personal website work reliably. So how can I do a poor man's A/B test? We route it at the DNS level using Azure Front Door or using something like Cloudflare. You can use Cloudflare with Azure. Works great. Excellent comments. Appreciate your comments. It makes a good engaged audience that includes comments, makes for a better talk. So Hanselman.com, though, remember I said is on .NET 4 on Windows, but it's a super simple site. So what I start with is I move it to .NET 6. .NET 6 is cross-platform. That means it runs on Linux. Okay. Go ahead and remove the comment there that's floating. We've got and then bring in some fresh comments from our friends on the social. We moved it to .NET 6, which is cross-platform. It works on Linux. It works on Docker. It works on Docker containers. So that's super. So how do I prove that, though? Let's go out to the command line, and let's go and visit one of my sites. So what we're doing here is I am in the Windows terminal. Here's my Windows terminal right here. You'll notice that I've used, in this case, PowerShell in the Windows terminal, and I've got a cool prompt. I'm using a prompt system here that is called Oh My Posh. You can go and find that at ohmyposh.dev. And that lets you make this prompt. And this prompt is cool because it shows me the version of .NET that I'm currently using. It shows me the current branch of Git that I'm using and my current folder. And then what do you think this is, my friends? What's going on here? Any guesses here from the chat? I've got all the things that matter to me. While you're guessing what that is, I'm going to go and say .NET build in this folder here. And we're going to make sure that that works. And then I'm going to say .NET run. And that's going to go and run my application here at the command line. And then you'll notice that because I am in Windows Terminal, I can actually click on the URLs. I can click on these URLs and run that application and see my site. So now I'm looking at localhost 5000. Localhost 5000. That's my local computer, localhost 5001. All right. So I am now running my website locally. We're using .NET Core. Good question. Good idea from Demilola. They guessed, is this lines of code? What is the 105? You know what that is, my friends? That's my blood sugar. You may not know, but I'm actually diabetic. And that is my blood sugar. And I have some implants in my body. I have plugins and implants. So what I do is I take the information from the implants. Here's one in my stomach. And it shows me what my blood sugar is. And then it goes to the cloud and it sits in a MongoDB database. And then it comes back down with a web service call. And what happens is that web service call puts my blood sugar. You can see actually the guess here, the hint was this little needle, because I have to use I take my shots. That is my blood sugar. Yeah, Yusuf's mind is blown. Now, why would I need that there, right? What's the most important thing for me right now? Well, there's three things important in my life when I'm coding. The version of .NET I'm using, the branch of Git, and my blood sugar so that I don't pass out. And the fact that it's green shows you that I'm probably okay right now. So that's pretty cool. All right, so while we were talking, that built and that was running. And you'll remember that we're on Windows here, right? So I'm on Windows. And by the way, that's just my blood sugar. You can put whatever you want here. You can put the weather, you can put the traffic in Legos, you can do whatever makes you happy. I've also gone and I've updated my directory. I really like colorful things. So I use a Beyonce style theme here that's very bright and pink. And I've got directory icons here and Docker things like that. Yeah, there you go. Yusuf suggests that we count caffeine at the and coffee, cups of coffee. That would be a cool IoT project to put our coffee. How many cups you've had? That's right, 105 cups of coffee just today, and it's only just getting started. So we're here on Windows at the command line. You'll notice that I am in the C drive on GitHub, Hanselman. All right. And Matthew says, would this be IoT? That's exactly what it is. If you have a thing and it's on the internet, that's Internet of Things. So we have Internet of Things, our prompt here, which is super fun. All right. So we just proved that we could run this, right? But here's the interesting part. I'm going to use the Windows terminal. I'm going to pull down this menu and you can see all the other prompts. Remember that the Windows terminal allows you to have lots of different things. That's my default prompt there with PowerShell, but what's going on here, right? I'm using WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux. So I'm actually running Linux on Windows, and you can do that too. If you have Windows Home or Windows Pro, Windows 10, Windows 11, whatever makes you happy, I'm going to go and actually run Ubuntu. So I'm going to click on the Ubuntu button here, but I'm going to hold down Alt. And when I press Alt, I'm going to do a split screen. Reginald says I'm doing a good job. Thank you, Reginald. Appreciate that. And here on the right-hand side, we have Ubuntu. And on the left-hand side, we have PowerShell. And you can actually see there at the bottom, we have PowerShell logo and the Ubuntu logo. And I even made the colors and stuff. And I include my themes. You can see my blood sugar went up by 1 point. So that's pretty cool. So on the right there, we have Ubuntu. So I'm going to close the left-hand side now, and I'm going to bring up the right-hand side. And we will go to the same folder, except now we're on Linux. Okay. And I'm going to say .NET -- info. Okay. And Aske says a novice here. Definitely. We are all amateurs, my friends. There are no professionals. Don't let anybody tell you that you're a professional, because everything I learned in school, every language I learned in school, every operating system, every computer that I ever learned on is dead. They're always going to be replaced by something new and interesting. So you really have to be sticking with learning. We're all novices. I love that. Yusuf makes a great point. Question is that the same shell on Linux? This is different. This is an interesting point. I want to point this out. The shell is bash. The shell is bash. So the shell, that's the thing that takes the commands. That's bash. But the shell is different from the prompt. The prompt is the thing that paints the prompt up here. So this prompt right here is oh my posh, but the shell is bash. So what I've done, and that's a great thing that you pointed out here, we've got PowerShell on the right, and we've got bash on the left, but you'll see that they have the same prompt. So you can make the prompts look like whatever makes you happy. If you want to learn more about the blood sugar stuff, Michael, who in the chat, you can feel free to go and Google for Hanselman diabetes. I have a whole section on my blog about my blood sugar, as well as how I manage it. Okay, so I'm back down here. I'm going to say now .NET build again, except now I'm doing it from Ubuntu. We're on Linux now. So we'll say .NET run in the command line. And I'm just using .NET, but you can use Node or whatever makes you happy. And here I am again. We're still on localhost 5001, except we are running it from Linux. So why is this important to our story? Why is this significant? Because if I move this to Linux, I'm going to have more choices, and I'm going to have the ability to put some of these things into Docker containers. And a Docker container is going to give me choice, because the goal was to get Hanselman.com off of this older technology, and Windows allowed me to run both Windows and Linux. So here I can actually code in two places. I can code in Windows and I can code in Linux. I can test on both, and this gives me choices. And this is a really interesting point I want to bring up. You will be a better technologist if you have a project that you care about. It can be your church's website. It can be your friend's sports league. It can be your website or your blog, your portfolio. But if you get to experiment and play on your own website, you're going to have more fun. So is there a reason that I'm doing Docker? Maybe. I wanted to learn Docker, and now I have a website I can test it on. So now I'm going to say Docker images. See if I have any images on this machine. I do. Let's switch back over to Hansel Minutes, which is a different, more complicated website. And you'll notice that I made some Docker scripts here. We've got Docker build. Let's take a look inside of Docker build. The Docker build is going to go and run Docker build and then tag that particular build as podcast. And it's going to use the current directory, Thank you so much for your chats. A lot of great folks in the chat. You need to make sure that you tell your friends what's happening here today at the Azure Nigeria Community Conference 2022. A lot of great sessions coming up. So if you're here, you need to go and text your friends and say, you're missing out, people, because we're having a great time right now. So I'm going to go and run Docker build. And let's go ahead and look at that message again. We see that we're saying Docker build, and we're tagging podcast. Look, we're going to go and build that container here on Windows from within Linux. It's going to pull that stuff down, and that's going to give me, again, more choices. Okay, so we're running that there. Now, while that's coming up, I'm going to switch over here to Azure and show you a couple of things that we're doing. So in Azure, there's a thing called an app service plan. That is kind of like a virtual machine, but it's a lot more flexible. So I have these two here. I've got a basic Windows with 6 websites, and I have a premium I pay a little bit more money for that has 4 websites. This one is on Linux, this one is on Windows. All right. So this Linux one has 4 apps. It's got the blog, the main site, the podcast, And it also has a show that I do called Azure Friday. Thank you for your support, Sophie. You're very kind. Here's Azure Friday. So here's a website that I do and I host where I talk about Azure with folks from all over the world. It's super fun. That is also hosted in the same place. Now, the reason that I point that out is that sometimes you'll go to an app service plan and you'll think it's quite expensive. But in fact, the reason is people assume that you have one plan and one site, when in fact, you can have as many sites as you can fit. So I'm using a basic here. I think this is about $6. I have 6 websites inside of that. And that's really important to point out. A lot of folks don't realize that you can fill this up as much as you want. And you'll notice that my CPU is quite low on that basic $6 or $10 website. And then my memory is quite high. That's because I'm caching everything. I'm caching everything in the cloud because memory is the most valuable thing that we have available to us in the cloud. So I'm going to hold all of that information in memory, and that allows my sites to be really fast, even though they're on a very inexpensive host. So if I just go and hit refresh, you can see how quickly the websites are loading. The blog, the podcast is all loading very, very quickly because I'm caching it and holding all of that in memory. So now that Docker has ran, and I can say Docker images, and we'll notice right here, podcast, about a minute ago, I just built it at 273 megs. I can then put that up into the cloud. Now remember that I was using Azure Front Door, AFD. We're going to click on Front Door here. I'm going to click on Hanselman, and there's a thing called the Front Door Designer. Take a look at this. Remember I mentioned staging. I can then choose to route my traffic however I want, all inside of Azure Front Door, and I can make routing rules. So here's my blog routing rule. So it matches patterns. So when a URL comes in that says blog or /blog and has a star, that's going to automatically go to a specific backend. This is really important. Remember at the beginning, we talked about DNS. You have full control of your DNS. I slowly took each website one at a time and moved them to Linux and then moved them into Azure. And then I went from www to staging until I had 99% traffic here and 1% on the old machine. And then I eventually drained all the traffic to 0% until 100% of traffic was on staging. And then I swapped it. Then I called the folks at the free hosting company that lost my computer, and I said, I don't need you anymore. I've moved everything to Azure. All right. So there's a great conference all day long. I hope that you stick around. There's some great stuff going on. I want to thank our friends at the Azure Nigeria Community Conference for chatting and bringing me here. And I think they're going to pop back in. Our hosts might pop back in and have a few additional questions as I get ready to go. While they're coming in, I want to encourage you also to please listen to my podcast. I have a searchable transcript. So if you want to search the last 840 episodes for topics that you're interested in or guests that you might be interested in hearing from, I would encourage you to check that out. Hey, friends.
Hello, Scott. Hello. That's been amazing. Yeah, Dami, what's been your impression so far? What have you seen so far? Looking at the chats that's been coming in, looking at the amazing demonstrations that Scott has shared with us. What's been your thoughts so far?
I think that was an engaging session and it was mind blowing. I think I was glued to my screen. I didn't want to miss any part of it because it was like, oh, it's technical, but also engaging. It wasn't a boring time at all. It was really technical and
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to try something different without slides. And then if anyone has questions about my diabetes, if you go to my blog, I have a section on diabetes where I talk about these things. So you can go and check that out as well. I saw some folks asking questions about my blood sugar.
Yeah. So just one question for me. Do you have any sessions or maybe any blog on also using Notepad and in expert mode?
So that's funny. That's funny that you say that, because I was literally thinking it's time to go and update my YouTube. So I have a YouTube that's called Computer Stuff They Didn't Teach You. And I feel like maybe teaching people how to use this technique that I'm doing, as well as storytelling, multitasking, creating stories, and doing presentations without slides. Would that be a thing that you would want to see if I did a video on that?
I think that would be awesome. And I think a lot of people, with some of the comments that I've read, would be interested in that. That would be awesome.
Excellent. I think I'll do a video on how to do this.
Yeah. Sakofi, any questions for you before we let Scott go and then we go to the track?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, just about a few weeks, I think a few days ago, I actually watched your, I mean, how to use a terminal like a pro, and I was blown away. The same way I see you display there on the terminal, how you actually customize it, and with the whole presentation, moving a traditional web service to modern infrastructure, modernizing it is so amazing. So, I mean, Scott, thank you very much for this session.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the other great sessions today.
Yeah, awesome. So speaking about like the other great sessions that we have planned for today, so we do have the tracks that we're going to be going to the tracks in a few moments, so we can let Scott go. So good, Scott, again, good to see you. Have a lovely day.
Thanks,
See you later.
Scott.
Yeah, bye for now. Yeah, so we do have like amazing sessions. So we do have like 2 tracks today. So we have track number 1 that'll be moderated by Damilola, who you've all met, and Isaka Popola. And also we have the second track, and the second track is going to be moderated by Mercy George Igbafe and Ezine Onochirionye. I hope I have not messed up your name, Ezine. So we'll let you go to the sessions now. So if you're not sure how to go to join the sessions, go to azure.community, azure.nigeria.community, and you're going to see the tracks embedded in the website. So please do that so you can get started with the tracks. So, and then if you have the address of our YouTube channel, so also you can go to the YouTube channel and you also be able to see those 2 feeds live. So, but for now, we'll bring this stream to an end with some message from our sponsors, and then we're going to see you over at the 2 track, at track number 1 and at track number 2. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone. So, bye for now from Horse Air.
Welcome to the Pride of Symbols, a people driven by the passion for excellence and the courage to take on big challenges and see them through. With integrity of mind and systems, our words, structures, and processes are always dependable. We are proud of who we are, what we do, and what we stand for. Firm is our commitment to the vision to build a globally recognized distribution company and to become the key driver of trade revolution across Africa. We have been empowered to make products and services accessible, affordable, and usable across Africa by building an efficient distribution network, and to remain the market benchmark for dynamism, efficiency, and competitiveness. We are rulers. We provide order. With confidence, enthusiasm, and wit we speak. The vulnerable and voiceless we empower. This is me. This is TD Africa. We rule. We conquer. We are Simba.